Guys, it's almost been a whole year, and I'm back! Worlds Without Number. Why? I'm about to start a Worlds Without Number game. So, that means I'm reading Worlds Without Number. Yippee! Today we're gonna talk about spellcasting, but before we get into that, let me remind you again what Worlds Without Number is. This is a modern take on OSR games, and basically a better D&D. If you haven't watched the other videos on the system, you should really check them out. I've talked about character creation, combat, and actions, and now it's spellcasting. So with these three videos together, it's really easy to know how to play the game. You just watch the videos, and then if there's specific things you need from the book, you just open the book. Foci. That's a cool foci. I grabbed that foci. This is a cool spell. I'll use that spell. Anyways, we gotta start the video. This intro's super long. Welcome to Pack Tactics, where we learn how to spell. So, Mage and Partial Mage are the only two classes in the game that get subclasses. While calling them subclasses is kind of wrong. But I'm gonna call them subclasses because, I don't really know what else to call them, and I'm a 5e player. So is my audience. Hello, guys. How are you guys? Anyways, the Mage's subclasses are the ones with spellcasting. In the free edition of Worlds Without Number, there are three options you have. High Mage, Necromancer, and Elementalist. Kobold, this game is free? Absolutely, it's completely free. There's 352 pages of amazing content here. There's also a deluxe version, which I'm using right now, and that comes with some extra rules and what have you, but also has a special subclass called the Adonic invoker. I'll talk about that at the end of the video. So, spellcasting and arts. I'm not going to talk about all the spells in the game or all the arts in the game, because that would take forever. But I'll show some examples of what they're kind of like. What? Arts? Like drawings? No. We'll get into that eventually. First, let's talk about spells. They work kind of like 5e, but of course differently. There are different spell levels, and you can only prepare spells that you can cast. You start by being able to cast first level spells, but the maximum level is 5. What makes this very different is that you don't have spell slots of different spell levels. You can only cast a maximum number of spells per day. I'm still gonna call them slots because, I have a 5e brain. While you can only get to 5th level spells, these spells are crazy nevertheless. Look at the first level spell, Sleep. It's called Wind of the Final Repose. The Mage designates a point within 200 feet. A silent, invisible burst of soporific influence erupts from that point, targeting all creatures within a 20-foot radius. All such targets with 4 or fewer hit dice within that area fall unconscious instantly, and can be roused only by damage or by a main action used to kick them awake. If not roused, they revive at the end of the scene. Entities that do not sleep are immune to this spell. Amazing spell. But this video is not about spells, it's about spellcasting and how that works. So we're gonna just move on. The spell level progression, the number of spell slots you have for each level, and the number of spells you can prepare are the same for the 3 spellcaster subclasses. For a full mage, the table looks like this. As for the partial mage is basically a multi-class. Their table looks like that. As you can see, the progression is a bit slower for the latter. It's kind of like what you'd expect from full caster versus half caster in 5e. Though in general, Worlds Without Number spellcasters get to cast a lot less spells than 5e ones. And that of course makes martials a lot more relevant in the game. Martials are really good in this game. I'm playing a full warrior, by the way. I'm super excited. Anyways, there are ways to get more spells in a day through foci and other things. But Kobold, what if I'm partial mage / partial necromancer? Kevin Crawford thought of this too. This is the PCs with dual spellcasting tradition table on page 64 of the book. It's sort of in the middle. You aren't well versed as a full mage, but you're nearly there. Hey, there's the arts thing again. Explain what those are. Okay, So, arts is kind of like cantrips in 5e, but again, not really. Their abilities aren't quite spells, and mostly not as powerful, but they don't require spell slots, and can often be used quite a lot during the day. Effort is basically another pool of resources different subclasses get access to. Almost all arts require 1 point of effort to be used. The number of effort points you have differs based on what you've picked, but the total score for the spellcasters is, quote, equal to 1 plus the mage's magic skill plus the higher of their intelligence or charisma modifiers. Adventurers with the partial mage class has an effort score 1 point lower than full mages, though never less than 1 point. Another thing is, if you have multiple sources of effort, they're all separate pools and can only be used for their own arts. You use one of your effort points by committing them. This doesn't mean that they're gone forever. The effort is returned automatically after a certain time. An art can require effort to be committed for 1 or 3 durations, which will be listed in their description. Here are the bullet points. Committing effort for the day to trigger powerful arts. 1 point of effort is invested in the power and returns the next morning after the mage has had a good night's rest. Committing effort for the scene to trigger more modest abilities. 1 point of effort is invested in the power, but returns as soon as the scene is done. Committing effort indefinitely to activate a persistent, lasting ability that keeps active as long as you keep 1 point of effort committed. You can reclaim this effort at any time as an instant action, immediately turning off the arts. This effort can remain invested indefinitely even while you're asleep or unconscious, provided that you have a few minutes to prepare things properly before falling asleep. If you're suddenly struck unconscious or killed, any such powers immediately end. Though keep in mind that you might want to prolong some arts. Hang sorcery, for example, can be brought across multiple scenes if you keep on investing efforts. Usually you see it as a minimum time your effort will be gone. Another thing is you can commit multiple effort points at the same time. As another example, one art I really like is Elemental Blast. This is kind of similar to Firebolt in 5e. As a main action, you can throw an elemental bolt by committing effort for the scene. However, you can repeatedly throw elemental blasts by spending more effort. Kaboom! Exactly, I really like arts. There's some really cool ones, or just really strong ones. And they're not quite as limited as spells. By the way, you guys need some dice. This video is sponsored by Only Crits. It's been a while. Fun fact, did you know Only Crits dice is compatible with D&D 5e, Pathfinder 2, and Worlds Without Number? No way! Really? Yeah, these dice are very special and shiny. And each set of dice has a fun little backstory to them, like right here is the new Magma Flake. Basically, red hot magma and molten gold mixed together to make these beautiful dice. By the way, I have really good news for you power gamers and optimizers who like to meme. You can get cheese dice. So if you're doing some cheesy mechanics in 5e, you can roll these dice. It's optimal. They are also edible. Perfect for your pizza topping. No, they're not edible. Don't eat them. I'm serious. You'll die. Anyways, I highly recommend you check them out. And if you do, please press the link in the description. No, Kobold, you're wrong. Press on the link onlycrits.com/gatortactics. What? Gator Tactics? Yeah. And if you like what you see, get some dice yourself. Use the code GATOR for 15% discount. What the heck? This code is better than mine. Why do you have this? Kobold, I'm the business lord. Well, whatever. Back to the video. Let's go back a bit and finish up our explanations of both features. On page 28, under the Mage's Choice of Starting Spells heading, it's explained how many spells mages get at level 1. Spellcasting full mages begin play knowing 4 first level spells, and partial mages begin play knowing 2. Adventurers with 2 partial spellcasting mage classes, such as a partial necromancer / partial high mage, knows 4. These spells may be chosen from any spell list available to them. A novice high mage, for example, would pick first level spells from the high magic spell list, while a new elementalist could pick them from either the high mage or elementalist spells. For context, high mages get access to high mage spells, whereas the others get access to high mage spells plus their own spells. Spells at later levels are explained in the character advancement section on page 55. It's under the Add New Spells and Arts heading. It reads, some mage classes automatically acquire new spells as the fruits of their recent researches. Partial mages learn them just as full mages do. But an adventurer PC with 2 partial mage classes must pick one or the other for the purposes of gaining new spells each time they advance a level. High mages can pick 2 high magic spells they are capable of casting, adding these spells to their spellbooks. Necromancers and elementalists may pick only one, but may make their choice from among high magic spells or those new magics unique to their particular tradition. In addition to this, mages may sometimes pick a new art, as given in the class charts for each magical tradition. Adventurers with 2 partial mage classes gain these bonus arts from both traditions, though the new picks must be made from arts allowed to that class. Thus, a partial necromancer / partial elementalist who reached 3rd level could pick 1 new necromancer art and 1 new elementalist art, but they could not pick 2 from the same tradition. So, for example, a partial high mage / partial necromancer gets to choose either 2 new high mage spells or 1 high mage / necromancer spell. If you want to get a high mage spell, the choice is obvious. You pick 1 spell via necromancer. No, you pick the new spells from high mage so you get 1 additional spell. Anyways, let's get to the last part. Let's talk about preparing and casting spells, mentioned on page 62. Preparing a new set of spells takes an hour and can only be done after a good night's rest, when the mage's mind is most fresh and malleable. Once spells have been prepared, they remain so indefinitely until replaced with a different set of magics. Once a set of spells is prepared, the mage may then cast them at their leisure. Casting a spell usually requires a main hand and at least 1 free hand, along with vocalizations at least as loud as clear normal conversation. The arcane gesticulations and vocal incantations are quite obviously occult to any onlookers, but it's usually impossible to tell which spell a mage is casting merely by looking at them. Casting a spell requires focus and undisturbed concentration. If a mage has taken hit point damage or has been severely jostled in a round, they cannot cast magic that round. Thus, a mage who acts late in a round runs the risk of being hurt and having their concentration spoiled, thus forcing them to do something other than cast a spell when their turn comes around. The last paragraph makes facing strong marshals or losing initiative incredibly debilitating for casters. A snap attack can ruin a spellcaster's day, but there are ways to make things not feel as bad though, like through foci, for example. Foci is feats. Here's some bonus content, by the way. I'll quickly mention the Adonic invoker. It's basically DLC content. While there is a partial Adonic invoker, you cannot mix it with another partial spellcasting class. Instead of having spell slots, they have spell points, and every spell requires a number of spell points equal to the spell level. It's like the 5e optional rule. They prepare and have a number of spell points based on their intelligence modifier. They start out by knowing 4 first level high magic spells or 2 if a partial class. And when they level up, they can learn 2 more of any level or tradition from which they can cast, or 1 if a partial invoker. Usually they can only cast from the high mage tradition, but there is a focus that allows them to cast from elementalists and necromancers too. There's more I could talk about, like hit points for mages, you can make your own spells. There's grimoires and calyx, which are like scrolls, and can be counterspelled, by the way. But I can't fit that all in this video, so maybe in the future. But that's if you guys really like this series. This is not a popular system at all. It's gonna do awful in the YouTube algorithm. So I need all the support I can get. Please like, comment, and subscribe and all that. And trust me, by the way, if this series gets enough support, I'll cover literally everything involving this book. Have you seen how many D&D videos I make? And I cover some really obscure rules too. I can absolutely cover everything in this book if I get enough supports. And I really want a playlist of a complete series of another system. I think it would be really cool if this channel becomes more than just an optimization or a D&D channel. It becomes a real tabletop RPG channel. Anyways, to answer the question, is Spellcasters overpowered in Worlds Without Number? No, I think they're great. But you should check out all the options yourself and make your own conclusion. End of video. Thank you very much for watching. Buy some dice. Bye bye!